Hi guys, it's me again. I'm just wanting to chat to you a little bit today about something which I don't think I'm the only person in the world to have experienced or indulged in, and that's cravings. Those intense, almost uncontrollable desire for something, for a certain type of food or anything sometimes. Okay, remember, a craving it's not the same as hunger. It's not your body calling out for some extra energy. It's often just your brain that's calling out for those sort of feel good hormones to as a reward for something. And different people have different cravings. If you happen to crave a bunch of spinach or a lovely juicy tomato to bite into, well, then go ahead and indulge. But for the rest of us mere mortals, usually the cravings are something that is higher in sugar or in fats or both, to help us feel that, satisfied and feel good. And it's, the biscuits, the chips, chocolate, sweets, ice cream, pizza, those kinds of foods, which makes then following a healthy diet and losing weight a little bit more challenging. Okay, so there's different reasons why, or different theories why we actually have these kind of cravings. Some of them, relate to hormonal changes, like in pregnant women, sometimes having low serotonin levels, which we find in people if you are in a time of stress, or if you're anxious, or with women in a menstrual cycle, serotonin levels drop, and then you get this desire for it's your feel good sort of chemical in the brain, and when they're low, then you desire these sort of high sugary content foods and other carbs like your potato chips. Okay, and the reason why that happens is because carbs help to form serotonin in the brain, okay, and provide that calming effect. So the key there is choosing the right kinds of carbs, but we don't always in those situations. Okay, so low serotonin levels is another reason. It could just be that there's some sort of connection between perhaps craving something, a specific food, maybe linked to a nutrient deficiency or something that you're lacking in your diet, which I'll touch on a few of those just now. It's quite fun. But also in that case, then a diet that is lacking in variety might also cause extra cravings. And of course, a severely restricted diet. Okay, and for those who were eating very differently before starting this challenge, you will probably find that the cravings have been there as well, because it's been perhaps a significant change for you. Okay, what we do know is that cravings are a way to seek pleasure. Okay, they're formed by sort of brain structures that, like memory and feelings of pleasure. So for example, when you were a child and you would get hurt or you were upset, perhaps mum gave you a chocolate chip biscuit to make you feel better. Those kinds of things can be then reinforced as adults. And so when you're having a bad day and you're not feeling well or whatever, you might feel like you're craving something like one of those biscuits. And the problem is, as we get older, we deal with more stress. So it's important to be able to recognize where those kinds of cravings come from. Okay, so they're a way to seek pleasure for us. Okay, cravings can also be learned. They also, besides any sort of biological, neurological, psychological factors, they're affected by socio-cultural norms. So things that in our culture we then become acceptable, and it's a craving because it's supposed to be a craving. So perhaps a silly example, but one of these things is where we learn that maybe it's okay to sit with a 2-liter bucket of ice cream if you've had a hard breakup. You deserve it and it makes you feel better. So those kinds of craving, we tend to crave it because that's kind of the accepted norm, and we see it on movies and everything else. So those kind of cravings can come there through those socio-cultural patterns. Okay, so you're going to ask me, Trace, but what do I do? What do I do? Do I indulge? What do I do? The bottom line is, don't fight it. Okay, the more we don't have something, the more we want it. We know this as human beings. That's how we made generally. The more people say no, 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 the more you want something. Okay, so then you're gonna ask, well, then what do I do if I can't control it? So that's the key. If you can control having just a little piece of chocolate, for example, then that's great. But if you're someone who then for example, comfort eats, and then he goes into the little the piece of chocolate becomes a slab of chocolate, which then is followed by half a box of biscuits, then it becomes a bit more complicated. And in that case, we need to try and maybe replace the craving with something else. Okay, so, and cravings are generally harmless, okay, unless you are craving non-food related items, which is another topic altogether. But the harmfulness comes in where it starts to sabotage our trying to eat healthily or live healthily and lose weight. Okay, so besides trying to block those sort of opiate receptors in the brain from actually desiring the sugar and fat content foods, which there's scientific evidence going towards, but I'm not going to go down there because it's not yet available. So besides from doing that, we try not to fight it too hard. Rather ask yourself why. Why am I craving this food? Is it because I'm hungry? Am I bored? Am I stressed? Am I emotional? Did I not eat breakfast this morning or have my snack? Are you needing a specific type of food? And what does that mean? Maybe you just need a little bit of TLC rather than, well, let's say a lovely fried chicken that rhymes with TLC. Okay, so sometimes it's more of an emotional thing, what's happening in your head and possibly in your heart, as opposed to what's happening in your biological body. Okay, so then you said, well, Tracy, then should I eat what I'm craving? And again, that comes back to, it depends if you how well you can control it once you start eating that thing. Okay, sometimes if it's a real problem, I would sometimes suggest starting a cravings journal. You have food diaries that have been emailed out to you at the beginning of the challenge. Use it. If you struggle with cravings, use it to write down when you're craving food, what kind of food you're craving, and if there's any emotions attached to that. You'll probably find then, over a period of time, you'll find the pattern, and then you can actually look at dealing with that pattern, okay, and what to do about it. Try not blame the carbs, okay? I know it's usually the biscuits and the chocolates and the ice creams and the cakes and things like that we generally crave. But linked with that, yes, there are carbohydrate-based foods, but they're also high in fats. So it's the combination of those two that also then push up the kilojoules and sabotage our weight loss program. What we do need to do, and hopefully we've tried to instill this in our meal plans, is include a lot of what we call smart carbs. Let's get smart, okay? The whole grains, the beans, the fruits, the vegetables, those kinds of things that can provide the substrate to create, for example, the serotonin levels and that calming effect, but with also being able to nourish your body and not sabotage it, okay? I'll get to it in a moment, but also make sure you rest well, okay? Rest well, drink plenty of water, and you'll probably find that your cravings start to diminish, okay, as you go through. Just a couple of things as to exactly what it is that you crave and what may be linked to it. For those of you who are chocolate lovers, okay, here we go. Here's my beautiful bright pink boards. Okay, if you crave chocolate, quite often, or there's a suggestion that your body might be lacking in some magnesium. Okay, so something to think about. Obviously, there are lots of other very good sources of magnesium, so we don't always have to go to the chocolate, especially if it's a more difficult one for you to control. Things like your spinach, oats, bananas, tofu, nuts, avos, all these kinds of things have got lovely amounts of magnesium and that can help you, or even just a little slow make fizzy if you really are struggling. And so, yeah, speaking of chocolate, sometimes people have asked me, and it's come up a few times, so I'll say it, the dark chocolate is your way to go. And there have been studies linking, and it's only about 28 grams of dark chocolate to satisfying those serotonin levels and helping you that feel-good hormone to come in, okay? Now, 28 grams is not a lot, okay? It's about a third of a slab. So if you're really craving it and you really want it, find at least 2 friends to come and share a dark chocolate with you, or grab one block of a really good quality dark chocolate, enjoy it, and then move on. Go for a run, go do something else, get yourself away from whatever you're craving and move on. You'll find that give it a little bit of time, it will settle in. Okay, so those of you that crave the chocolate, have a look at your magnesium. Sugary food, sweets, pastries, these kinds of things. Often this is linked with not having enough enough sleep and you're tired and you're trying to get the sugar in as a quick pick-me-up, please try and avoid that, because what happens is that it does pick you up quickly, but then it drops you again, and then you actually feel more tired than what you did before. So either that's where your snacks are important, your good carbs or some fruit, or if you're really feeling like something sweet, like a dried fruit, maybe a couple of prunes, dates or something like that, that will help give you that sweet feeling or that sweet taste without too much of the very processed sugars. Cheese, any of you that really crave cheese, there might be, might be a whole lot of reason to it. Sorry, my page is moving there. It's something called tryptophan, which helps to improve mood and help you to relax more. So then again, in this case, maybe it's a little bit of that TLC that you're needing. But also for the cheese, then cut it in small portions, have a little bit at a time, or maybe grate some and have it with a bit of fruit, things like that, and that should then satisfy. Be careful, it's just portions we need to be careful of. Sorry, I know I'm pushing for time here, but hang in there, guys. Craving Coke, Pepsi, things like that, and it might be the sugary fizziness that you actually enjoy, or the sweet fizziness, but more likely it's the caffeine rush that we're going for. Okay, so try something instead of reaching for this, keep it out the house. Try something like a sparkling water with a dash of fruit juice, or maybe a slice of orange or lemon or something in it, which will give you that same feeling of the fizziness without the extra kilojoules. Okay, and for the caffeine's not always bad. That's why we say you can have up to 4 cups of coffee or tea in a day, but too much is not good for us. We know this. Okay, always comes back down to moderation, doesn't it? Chips, fried, all these kind of fatty foods, be careful. We're looking at saying, or maybe you're not getting enough good fats in your diets, especially your omega-3 fatty acids, but a lot of your dietary stuff, your diet can provide that with some nice salmon or other oily fish, pilchards even, and other just general good fats, avos, nuts, olive oil, things like that. Again, just be careful of the amounts, because they are fat and so they contain kilojoules, so keep the portions smaller. Salty foods, okay? Salty foods, or sweet and salty together. Salty foods can often indicate a deficiency in a certain type of mineral. Magnesium, zinc, calcium. Magnesium, zinc, and calcium. So if you're looking for salty foods all the time, you might just need to check that out, okay? Again, if you're having a good, balanced, well-varied diet, those should diminish as well. Sweet and salty? Well, often this happens especially because your body needs both glucose and salts and sodium to actually survive properly, okay? So often after an exercise session or time when you've been sweating a lot, then you'll find you're craving something sweet and salty. So maybe like a Biozest or some sort of low-calorie energy drink would low-kilojoule energy drink might help you there, okay? But again, just be careful what you're having. One of the other things, anything. I've had some people say, Tracy, it doesn't matter what it is. I'm just craving something, anything. Okay. You might actually just be dehydrated. We often ignore that feeling of thirst and ignore it, and we just then feel hungry and we're going for food, but actually your body's dehydrated. So drink a tall glass of water, wait a couple of minutes, go and do something, and see if you're actually craving something again after that. Okay. So again, just be careful. So we know cravings are real, and there's lots of reasons why they could be happening to you, or what's there. If, like I said, if it's a lot of times, investigate it. Maybe it's something deeper than just walking past and smelling the cinnamon donuts and wanting one. It could be deeper than that. So investigate that. But don't let the craving sabotage your weight loss journey and your weight loss goals. Come on. If I can do it, anyone can. Let's go for it. Bye.